Today on the CTV News at 5, Rich Preston fired.
Late last night, Rich Preston was relieved of his duties with the Lethbridge Hurricanes.
Who will be the Canes' next bench boss? Plus, the victims of 2 recent BC avalanches have been named. And more help for those struggling to make ends meet.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. The Rich Preston era is now over. The Lethbridge Hurricanes have fired their head coach and general manager.
Both of us have been in the game for over 30 years. You get hired to get fired. He's disappointed and he was upset, but at the end of the day, I think he has my blessing and confidence in myself that I can do the job for the Lethbridge Hurricanes.
Brad Robson spoke to Preston last night, minutes before he was offered the job of general manager and accepted. Preston failed to deliver in playoff hockey in Lethbridge, missing the postseason in all 4 years of his tenure. The decision to remove Preston was reportedly unanimous at a Board of Governors meeting last night. Now, Daryl Rummold is at the NMAX Center and has been following this for us. Daryl, how is the news being met by fans and people you've spoken to today?
Yeah, Jackie, I think this news is being met with overwhelming sigh of relief. A lot of fans have been calling for Preston's head for a number of weeks now, heading even as far back as the Christmas break. It's an interesting development, though, in that we talked to President Brian McNaughton last week, who said that he didn't believe that firing Rich Preston was the right move for the organization at the time. But obviously they've had some time to decompress, look back at the season that was, and back over the past 4 seasons, which have been vastly unsuccessful by the board's expectations. And they've named a new GM in Brad Robson. Here's what he had to say about taking over the job today.
My one major priority will be the Bantam draft May 2nd, so I will continue to work all the provincial camps, and the first camp is this coming weekend in Manitoba, and for the next 5 weeks. So that will be a priority, and the other priority will be a head coach for the Lethbridge Hurricanes.
Preston had 1 year left on his contract worth about $160,000. His assistant coaches, Matt Kabiyama and Chris Chisamore, have no contracts after this year. They will expire in May, meaning the new head coach will have his pick in terms of assistant coaches. We'll have a whole lot more on this coming up a little later in sports. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. Dory Rossiter, the hits just keep on coming. We've got some great weather. We like it.
Yeah, I know. You and a lot of people. I've had absolutely no complaints, which is really strange for a weather person to go a couple of days with no complaints. You know, we get a little itchy after that. So, but I'll deal with it. And it's going to be a complaint-free rest of the week for sure. And then even heading into next week, I'll tell you all the details coming up in a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Dory. Well, RCMP say a road trip ended in tragedy after officers recovered the body of a 71-year-old man along the Kananaskis Road just 7 kilometers north of the Crow's Nest Pass. RCMP say they found 2 women, including the man's 69-year-old wife and a 66-year-old companion, about 10 kilometers away. Their car had become stuck in heavy snow. The man left to help around 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon. When he didn't return the following day, the women tried to hike out. They were about 5 kilometers from the car when RCMP found them. Police aren't releasing the victim's identity, but say they are from the Fort Macleod area. Meanwhile, the BC Coroner's Service has confirmed the identity of a man who died in an avalanche near Kimberley, BC on Saturday. The man was 38-year-old Joel Conway of Kimberley. Conway was one of a group of 7 snowmobilers who had traveled to the area of Hell Roaring Creek, southwest of Kimberley, on a memorial run for another Kimberley resident who died in an avalanche in the same area 4 years earlier. While the group was in the area, a large avalanche hit, burying 2 of the men. One man managed to dig himself out, but Conway, he was just buried too deep. The BC Coroner's Service and RCMP continue to investigate. The avalanche risk is considerable to high in many parts of the province. And the BC Coroner's Service has also identified a man killed in an avalanche in Glacier National Park near Revelstoke on Sunday. He was 38-year-old Jason Chad Westbury of Revelstoke. The slide was unleashed while he was testing avalanche conditions. 2 other skiers who were with him survived. As we mentioned, it's the second avalanche death in BC in 2 days. And members of the Fish and Game shooting range in Lethbridge say that it's going to cost over $18 million to relocate outside city limits for safety reasons. The association is hoping for $15.3 million from the city to cover the cost of land and reconstruction of a new facility. The renewed commitment to relocating the range comes after a stray bullet left the site and hit a nearby mobile home. The organization is hoping to have the move complete by 2026.
There's $18 million is the total cost of the project, and we were looking to provide $3 million of that 18. So the net cost to the city's 15 then.
Now, range members are hoping to fundraise about $3 million for the project. And Exhibition Park officials are hoping for a $25 million commitment from City Council to turn Exhibition Park into a major convention center. The project is expected to cost around $65 million. They're hoping to have $50 million in costs funded by the province and federal governments. Officials say it's the right move for Lethbridge and will provide an economic boost to the community. The project includes major upgrades to the facilities on site and parking. Now, the Galt No. 8 Mine Historic Society is hoping to turn the site into a world-class tourist attraction. The Galt No. 8 Mine Historic Site Society says $500,000 is needed to replace the roofing on 9 buildings at the site. Another $3 million to purchase the land from the existing owner, who is willing to do a land swap of 10 acres within the city.
So that they won't actually be out as much money. It'll just be a land swap and relocating, and of course, whatever the difference is in the land properties, but that's what the land is valued at.
The plan is to preserve the site's history with period reenactments while adding a number of attractions like a 4D theater and a restaurant. Individuals or families struggling to meet basic needs are going to be getting some much needed support next month through a biannual community event called Project Connect. This morning, the West Lethbridge Lions Club handed over $2,500 to provide a hot meal for the 300 people who are expected to attend. Donations of toiletries, socks, underwear, and other personal items are also being accepted until the end of next week. Project Connect will be held Saturday, April the 6th, providing all sorts of services, including free legal advice, counseling, even free haircuts. Organizers say it's important to stay connected if we want to end homelessness.
Absolutely, and not only do our Housing First team stay connected with a lot of people, but there are also people living with low incomes that are living paycheck to paycheck and are at risk of losing their homes as well. So this is an opportunity for them to get connected to the services that will ensure that that they can maintain their permanency in their housing.
What's a little different is that this year, the Running Room and Runner's Soul are collecting donations of gently worn shoes that will be handed out at Project Connect. More than 200 volunteers are involved in putting on the event. So what does a piano, a condo stay in Florida, and a big steel box have to do with cats? Well, those are some of the items being donated to help raise money for the Last Chance Cat Ranch. Big Steel Box has donated containers to store all of the donations until the benefit and auction, which is scheduled for April the 13th. The event will raise money to pay vet bills and provide ongoing care for cats rescued from a fire 3 weeks ago. The blaze destroyed the cat sanctuary operated by Elizabeth Ginn. About 30 cats were killed in the fire. Another 30 were rescued and treated by veterinarians. Ginn says it's too bad that it took a tragedy to inspire people to support the cat ranch, but she appreciates the generosity.
They're all supporting and loving and giving more value to the life of a cat, because a lot of people don't really care as much as they should, is how I feel. And the support is phenomenal. It's just blowing me away every day. There's something new happening.
Animal lovers or not, you just have to be a part of the community. So for a cause like this, someone that loses everything, you have to be willing to give whatever you can to try to help them out.
Ginn says getting all these donations means that she won't have to bear the cost of operating the Rescue Society on her own. She says before the fire, about half of her income was spent to care for rescued animals. You can get more information about the fundraiser on the Last Chance Cat Ranch Facebook site. A former chancellor of the University of Lethbridge has passed away. Shirley DeBow died suddenly Monday at the age of 68. She was appointed the 10th chancellor of the U of L in 2003 and was also involved in many other community organizations. In 2006, she served as honorary chair of the Lethbridge Youth Foundation's Investing in Youth campaign. DeBow was married to Honorable Judge Gerald DeBow. Funeral arrangements have not yet been announced. A new study says that coal-fired electricity is harming our health and damaging our environment. The study from the Pembina Institute and the Asthma Society says coal pollution is linked to 4,000 asthma cases and hundreds of emergency room visits every year. The study also says Alberta burns more coal than the rest of Canada combined, emitting as many greenhouse gases as the oil sands. Health and environmental groups are demanding the province phase out coal plants faster than the federal government's guidelines, which would take another 50 years. Experts say the warming climate could affect water quality and lead to more wildfires in southern Alberta. We have more on Farm TV.
Will climate change affect the number and size of wildfires? Kevin Bladen of the University of Alberta was a featured speaker at the Oldman Watershed Council's 7th annual Holding the Reins Landowners Summit.
I think many folks with climate change immediately think of it in terms of temperature and warming planet, but there's a whole pile of secondary effects, and so one of those being wildfire. And so if we get warmer weather, longer periods of drought-like conditions, higher rates of evaporation, that can lead to much drier forests and therefore much more combustible forests. And so when those fires burn, they burn with greater intensity and severity.
How might that affect the watershed in areas downstream from the fires?
There's a whole host of potential implications of those fires on water values from water quantity. We get shifts in the timing of delivery of that water into our aquatic systems, and then we see changes in water quality. And the legacy from that can be short-lived or long-lived depending on what the individual nutrients are or the intensity and severity of that fire.
Farm TV is brought to you by DA Building Systems.
Coming up, Dory's going to tell us more about that fabulous forecast, and Daryl's got a look at the hurricanes without Rich Preston. Coming up in sports.